Yesterday was the second anniversary of when Joanna fought Zhang Weili for the UFC strawweight title. The five-round affair is considered one of the greatest fights in women's MMA history, and today we will discover the craziest women's MMA fights in UFC history. The MMA world has seen plenty of big female MMA fights since. Several fights have stolen the show on stacked cards, and fighters have made a name for themselves after, earning the respect of the fans and their peers. Ronda Rousey vs. Carmo, year 2013. This fight may have lasted one round, but as the first women's main event in UFC history, this does hold value. Rousey attempted to control the bout early, but Carmo held her off, if only for a brief moment. Carmo ended up on Rousey's back and was looking for a submission, but Rousey had a fantastic defensive game. She took her off her back, and Rousey never looked back. She tied up Carmo by the legs and went for side control. Rousey pounded away at Carmo and then landed the armbar for the win. It was a big Rousey win, but it also showed the first time she was in trouble. Carmo held her own early, which made things extremely interesting. Tate vs. Ronda Rousey 1. Strikeforce, 2012. Tate vs. Ronda Rousey is a defining rivalry in women's MMA. It was also something that took place well beyond the UFC. Tate, the then Strikeforce bantamweight champion, fought Rousey inside the Nationwide arena. Tate started pressing Rousey early, with strikes being key early on. Unfortunately for her, Rousey's ground game at the time was undeniably great. She locked in an armbar, but Tate managed to escape. While Tate was looking for a submission of her own, Rousey reversed, landed a judo throw on the feet, and reapplied the armbar for the win. It was a short fight, but with a first round for the ages. Nunes vs. Valentina Shevchenko I, UFC 2016. Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko are two of the most dominant fighters in women's MMA. Facing off against one another was the ultimate dream match. Fans were able to witness the two fight at UFC 196. It was a terrific back-and-forth clash, with Nunes controlling the beginning of the fight. Nunes landed striking combinations that slowed Shevchenko down. Nunes dominated the second round until the end when Shevchenko would gain some form of control. In round 3, Shevchenko would wake up, striking Nunes with vicious blows. In total, Nunes landed 39 shots compared to Shevchenko's 28. Both landed a takedown and Nunes got the unanimous decision win. Who knows what would have happened if the bout had gone 5 rounds? A rematch in 2017 that did go 5 rounds was close, and fans have been waiting for a trilogy fight ever since. Holm vs. Ronda Rousey, UFC 2015. This is one of the top fights in MMA history, in a historic sense. Ronda Rousey, the first UFC bantamweight champion, was on a dominant run at this point in her career, mowing down the competition. Rousey was the unstoppable force that continued to get bigger in and out of MMA. Holm, a former boxing champion, was making waves in MMA. On a 2-fight win streak in the UFC, the preacher's daughter fought Rousey for the UFC bantamweight title in Australia. In front of over 56,000 people, Holm put on a clinic against Rousey. She outboxed Rousey and used her kicks to her advantage. Rousey could not adapt to Holm's attacks, and her corner didn't help the situation. Holm would then land a solid straight hand and a kick to the face, forcing Rousey down to the ground. The world was in shock as a dominant champion was dethroned. This was a changing of the guard moment that people will always remember. Joanna vs. Claudia Gadelha 2, UFC 2016. Back in 2014, Joanna Jedrzejczyk beat Claudia Gadelha via split decision in a strawweight title eliminator, even after the latter scored 7 takedowns. The two would run it back in 2016, this time as coaches of the Ultimate Fighter and Joanna as the UFC strawweight champion. In a season where the two almost clashed several times, they were finally ready to settle their differences inside the octagon. At the Ultimate Fighter finale, Gadelha dropped Joanna early in the first round thanks to a jab. The former would land 4 takedowns against Joanna, but Joanna would persevere in the later rounds. She landed a total of 176 strikes against Gadelha. Gadelha had an opening early but couldn't take advantage. Joanna took home the win in a hard-fought contest. Tate vs. Zingano, UFC 2013. While not the first bantamweight bout in UFC history featuring women, the saying goes that second is the best. Inside the Mandalay Bay Events Center, Tate and Zingano put on a clinic during the Ultimate Fighter finale. Tate controlled the bout early with early submission attempts, but Zingano would battle back and landed knees in the clinch, leaving Tate bloodied and confused. Zingano's offensive capabilities were in full force. Zingano won via TKO thanks to a few elbows, making herself known to the MMA world. Following that fight, the momentum Zingano carried resulted in her being the last fighter until Juliana Pena in 2021 to beat Amanda Nunes. Joanna vs. Rose Namajunas 2, UFC 2018. At UFC 217, Rose Namajunas pulled off the upset when she dethroned Joanna to become UFC strawweight champion. Joanna was not ready for the blows Namajunas landed. After some time off, the rematch was on. Moving the fight from Madison Square Garden to the Barclays Center, Joanna and Namajunas put on a show to remember. Namajunas was dealing with the effects of Conor McGregor throwing a dolly at a bus with her on it, which was meant for Khabib Nurmagomedov. She was able to work past it, however. Joanna landed 145 shots compared to Namajunas' 105, but the latter had a takedown in the fight. Namajunas won via unanimous decision in a back-and-forth fight. Both got a standing ovation. Jessica Penne vs. Michelle Waterson, Invicta FC 5, 2013. On a night in which Chris Cyborg, Sarah Kaufman, Leslie Smith, and Julia Budd were fighting, Jessica Penne and Michelle Waterson stole the show. Penne, the then Invicta FC atomweight champion, faced off against Waterson. Waterson controlled the bout early, thanks, in part, to a strong takedown game. Penne was able to counter Waterson's moveset as the second round ended. She put Waterson down to the floor and landed solid blows to the face. Penne then had Waterson down and tried submitting her, but Waterson would survive. Waterson then landed a surprise armbar of her own for the win. This was a scrap that showed the toughness of both women. It also secured atomweight as one of the top divisions in MMA. Waterson defended the atomweight title twice before losing it and joining the UFC. If you like this video please subscribe to our channel for more interesting videos.